It was a number of years before. Torvald felt very proud of himself because he'd read a story in the Toronto Star about the inexpensiveness of the clinic. So he got himself put on their waiting list and then went down for a frugal visit. They x-rayed him and cleaned his teeth. When it was time for his third visit, he was running a few minutes late. He rushed up University Avenue towards Elm, the street the faculty was located on. He was surrounded by glassy high-rises. There was a big blue new building on the corner that looked like an elongated motorcyclist's helmet. When he got to the Faculty of Dentistry, he was already out of breath. He was directed by a curt secretary to the second floor where he was greeted by a punctilious nurse. He was led, almost jogging, into an immense room where all the dental chairs were set up in rows. The room was the size of an aircraft hangar. Torvald was shown to a chair in one of these rows and then left there, waiting and perspiring after all his rushing. A young, chubby male with short, dark hair approached him. "Mr. Leasing?" he asked. "Hi." Torvald twisted his head and smiled. "You're here for a checkup?" "Yeah." "My name is Neil." Neil placed Torvald's x-rays on a small light board next to the dental instruments. "According to your chart, your fillings are very old. They're cracked." Torvald was still lulled by the big, clean ambience of the room. He muttered. "They should be replaced." Torvald started to become more alert. "I don't think they're that old. I just had them put in the late 90s. "Well, it's 2006 now. That's 7-8 years. That's a long time." The thought that if his fillings needed replacing at this rate, he'd need an entirely new set of teeth by the time he was 40 flitted through Torvald's mind. But this idea was anesthetized. He felt that something was wrong with what was being proposed, but he couldn't quite muster a protestation. After a moment, he said, "Listen, I've been thinking of getting something besides mercury amalgam fillings put in." "What?" Neil said. "You want a resin?" "I guess. Is that the only other choice?" Neil pointed his large arm toward a patient a few dental chairs away. "See that woman there? She had resins in her mouth. Now they're all rotten. They say resins are a dentist's best friend because after a year you need a root canal." "Yeah, but I'm not that crazy about having more mercury pumped into my system." "Mercury amalgam is perfectly safe. Look at me." Neil opened his mouth. It seemed to be plastered with a dark, tin-colored silver. He had so many fillings that his teeth looked like pewter deposits. Neil smiled at Torvald triumphantly. What Torvald really wanted was to have gold put into his mouth, but he didn't think that the mentioning of this was a possibility. He knew it'd be a scandalous suggestion. The whole point of coming to the clinic was to get dental care that a person on a fixed income otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. A benign-looking supervisor passed by Torvald and Neil with his hands clasped behind his back. He was an energetic man in his 60s with a very lined face and a white beard. "How's everything?" he asked. "We are just talking about the advantages of amalgam fillings," Neil said. The supervisor, who already appeared so bemused that it was as if his state of mind triggered a very pleasant heat in his body, looked even more warmed up. He regarded Torvald. "I'm concerned about mercury," Torvald said. "Why?" the supervisor asked. His voice was craggy, charismatic, bullying. "Well, because of the toxicity risk and the link to nerve problems. There are millions of people in the city alone with amalgam fillings. Do you see them with nerve problems?" It was the first time Torvald had heard this argument, and he didn't know how to respond to it. He lay back in the chair. Its slippery vinyl seemed to be emitting hypnotic rays. Neil hovered over Torvald, smiling generously, eager to get started. "There's been no established link between amalgam fillings and health problems of any sort," the supervisor said, quoting scripture, and he walked away. Torvald did some quick mental calculations. If he could get new fillings put in cheaply and then wait another 8 years, by that point he would possibly be able to afford gold or whatever else the durable non-amalgam alternatives were. It seemed an acceptable level of risk. "Can we start?" Neil asked. Torvald nodded.